In a game where every +1 matters, there's a particular action that you can take and a particular thing that you can arrange on the battlefield in order to really get a good bonus, and that is take cover and just being in cover in general. It can provide as much as a +4 circumstance bonus to you on various things, and it is pretty easy to do because of the 3 action economy, simply because you have a lot of opportunity to do battlefield positioning. So my name is Don. I'm trying to be the Sly Strategist, and let's go ahead and get into it. Cover is one of those things that really comes into effect when you're very aware of your battlefield positioning, not only against the enemy and what's around you, but also within your own party. So let's cover a few of the specific details of cover, and then we'll go into some examples. So when you are behind an obstacle that could block weapons, guard against explosions or spell effects, or make you harder to detect, you are behind cover. Now, just the standard cover, just by being behind an object, grants you a +2 circumstance bonus to AC, 2 reflex saves against area effects, and 2 stealth checks to hide, seek, and otherwise avoid detection. You can increase this to greater cover by using the take cover basic action. That is going to increase the circumstance bonus all the way up to a +4. Now, there are times when you can't quite get that even standard cover or greater cover, but you can get lesser cover. Typically, when it's provided by another creature or someone in your party, maybe, you have lesser cover. It grants a +1 circumstance bonus to AC. A creature with standard cover or greater cover can attempt stealth to hide, but lesser cover, since you are not totally out of the opponent's sight, isn't quite sufficient. I'm going to go ahead and bring up a chart here, and it'll show you basically lesser cover is going to give you that +1 to AC and AC only, and no chance to hide from it. Standard cover is going to give you the +2 to AC, reflex, and stealth, and you can hide from it. And greater cover gives you a +4 to AC, reflex, and stealth, and also you can hide from it. Now, the big thing to remember about cover is relative. So just because you have cover against one creature does not mean that you are going to have cover for everything else on the battlefield. Cover applies only if your path between yourself and the target is partially blocked. If a creature is basically entirely behind a wall, or you've gone around a corner and you can't see them at all, then you really don't have a line of effect at all and you can't target them. Cover doesn't come into effect simply because you can't see them to have cover from them. Usually it is going to be up to the GM, who is going to be the one who will make the decision whether your target has cover or not. So always try to do the proper positioning and then ask the GM to make that determination on what kind of cover you have. If you are uncertain or you need to be precise, here's what you need to do. You draw a line from the center of your space to the center of the target space. If that line passes through any terrain or object that would block the effect, then the target has standard cover. Now, if it is something like extreme, or you do the action take cover, then it can be upgraded to greater cover, which is going to give you that +4 circumstance bonus. Now, if a line passes through a creature instead, then you are going to have lesser cover. So if it doesn't go through an object, but goes through a creature, then that is going to be the lesser cover condition. When measuring cover against an area effect, you're going to draw a line from the center of the area of effect's point of origin to the center of the creature space in order to determine whether cover is going to occur in that particular space. Now let's cover a little bit about cover and large creatures. So if you are seeking cover behind a large creature, and by large creature, I mean a creature that is 2 or more sizes larger than both you and the target, then that creature blocks enough space for you to have standard cover as opposed to lesser cover. Now, the GM is going to be the one who's going to determine that particular effect, and if the creature who is trying to take cover is trying to hide behind something, let's say very small, like a column, and they are a large or huge creature, then that little 2 foot, 3 foot column is not going to be enough in order to block everything else around it, and therefore they wouldn't have cover. With that, let's go ahead and go into a couple examples of what cover looks like on a map. Now, in this little battle scene, we're seeing basically our party who is fighting against a Kobold Scout and a Kobold Warrior over here. Now, if we go ahead and kind of look at our main fighter here, Crag and the Kobold Scout are totally in each other's line of sight. There is no terrain blocking them off, so therefore there is no cover between the two. However, Emily, our rogue, does have Crag in between her and the Kobold Scout, so therefore she has lesser cover against the Kobold Scout. Our magic user, Anseal does have from center to target, does have terrain being this particular corner blocking. So they both have standard cover from each other. And in this particular case, our cleric, Ira, does not have line of sight to the Kobold Scout, and it is of the same general size as Ira, so therefore they can't even be targeted between each other. However, to kind of show you a little example of how cover is relative, against this Kobold Warrior, not a single person has any cover whatsoever, not even Anseal, because if you go from the center of his square to the center of the Kobold square, there is nothing blocking that particular pass. So cover is always relative. Now, if we go ahead and look at it against a large creature, we have an Ogre Warrior against our party. Just like before, our fighter, Crag, and the Ogre Warrior, there is nothing between the two, so therefore neither one of them have cover from each other. Emily still has lesser cover because if you go from the center of her square to the center of the Ogre Warrior, Crag is still there, so she would have lesser cover. Anseal from the center of his square to the center of the Ogre Warrior does have some terrain blocking, so Anseal would have standard cover. Now the difference with a large creature is Ira does still have line of sight to the Ogre Warrior, even though if you go from center to center, there is a block. However, there is still line of sight. So in that particular case, they do have cover from each other. And in most cases, because there is so much terrain between the two, the GM might decide this is greater cover, although once again, they can each target each other if need be. And for large creature cover, in this particular case, you can see we have our Ogre Warrior is fighting against Emily, our rogue. The Ogre Warrior, being such a large creature, is not going to gain cover from being in this pillar simply because there's too much of the creature for this particular small pillar to block from Emily. So this large creature would not gain cover from this particular pillar. Now, cover is such an interesting topic. It is a way to really gain a lot for just doing a little bit of battle positioning and being aware of what your surroundings are. Remember, in a game where every +1 matters, a +2 or a +4 can really kind of change the scope of your particular battle. Now, all these examples I set up, they are all going to be kind of to GM discretion. Some of them are incredibly obvious as far as what is cover and what isn't. But there are cases where specifically like against the large creature and we had our cleric against the Ogre Warrior, in general, I would rule that as greater cover. There might be a GM that might say it's not, and that is totally fine. That just is dependent on the rules of your particular table. Now, I do hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you learned something. I do hope that by kind of putting these things on a map and putting it on a table and kind of showing you some very concrete examples of what these things actually look like on a table where actual combat is happening, kind of gives you a little bit more sense on what to expect and what things might be. But I do hope you liked the video, and if you did, feel free to like, subscribe, or hit that notification bell. But whatever you do, I hope you have a great day and happy adventuring. Thanks.